Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:33 p.m. This is a special board meeting being held on August 19, 2021. We have a quorum with all members present. At this time, we will open the public hearing to discuss budget and proposed tax rate for the 2021-2022 school year at 6:33 p.m. We will first have a presentation.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Nivens, and members of the public. I'm pleased to present the public hearing information for our 2021-22 budgets and tax rate information. First of all, there are 3 budgets that require official adoption by the Board of Trustees of Lamar CISD. Those are for the General Fund, which is also known as the M&O Fund, the Debt Service Fund, also known as the INS or Interest and Sinking Fund, and the Child Nutrition Fund. The district adopts the budget at the functional category level. The functional category or the function code refers to the TEA's required uniform coding structure, and it describes the focus for the expenditure. Amendments during the fiscal year that cross functions must have additional board approval. First, I'd like to cover the general fund, and starting with revenues, we are proposing a revenue budget of $375,276,230. The largest categories of revenue for the district are property taxes and state per capita revenue. The property taxes, of course, are based on property values within the district boundaries, and the state per capita funding is computed under the state's funding formula. And a big component of that is our student attendance and enrollment. $182.6 million of our revenue is property taxes, and that represents about 49% of total revenue, and $167.8 million relates to our state funding, and that's about 45%. Another 5% or $18 million of our revenues comes from TRS on behalf payments that we need to record on our books. Some information about our property values and the property value growth this year. The Fort Bend County Tax Assessor Collector officially submits property value information to the district each year. This year, values were certified by the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District on July 21st, 2021. Appraised or market value of all properties in the district were $26.783 billion. And after adjustments for such things as reductions for homestead cap adjustments, exempt property, productivity reductions like for ag property, exemptions like homestead, disabled, pollution control, and those types of things, and also our freeze values, our net freeze adjusted taxable value of all properties was $18.327 billion. The chief appraiser also gives us a reasonable estimate of the properties that are still under review by the ARB, and we use 96% of those values also in our property tax levy calculation. A market value of those properties was $254.188 million, and then the freeze adjusted at 96% was $196.374 million. So our combined values for budgeting this year are $18.523 billion. As you can see from this chart, since 2016, we've had substantial property value growth. In 2016, our budgetary value of properties was $13.125 billion, and then from 2017 through the current 2021 year, we've seen sustained growth, and this current year we're seeing growth of 9.8%. On the expenditure side of the budget, We are balanced at $375.276 million, with the biggest categories of expenses for us being payroll and benefit costs, and also professional and contracted services, which also includes our utilities. About 85% of the budget relates to payroll and benefit costs, and then another 8% for professional and contracted costs. This particular schedule is organized by two-digit object code. The object code is also something that's prescribed by the TEA, and it describes what we're buying. So if we're paying for personnel, it's payroll costs, and that's your 6,100. And I've highlighted the two digits of that code that signify what we're buying. Later you'll see this same total organized by functional category, because that's the format that the board adopts the budget in. And the function code shows who or what group benefits versus what we're buying. Within this budget, we are also proposing raises. Included in our compensation plan, which is also in your board packet this month. You've got the compensation plan that includes all positions that are authorized by the Board of Trustees for the 21-22 fiscal year. It includes the rates of pay for all supplemental duties and part-time employees. The schedules in the compensation plan include the teacher hiring schedule. So you'll see the annual 10-month salaries for all of our staff that are paid on the teacher salary schedule. Beginning salaries this year will be $59,500. That equates to a little over $318 per day, and that's on a 187-day work schedule. Also in the compensation plan are pay grade tables, stipends, rates for athletic events, concessions, fine arts events. Also there's a schedule in there for guest instructors, administrators, and paraprofessionals, as well as part-time employees. I mentioned that we have raises included this year. We're giving a flat raise, or recommending a flat raise of $1,950 for all of those paid according to the teacher hiring schedule, and that equates to an average of about 3%. We're also recommending a 3% of midpoint raise for all non-teaching positions that are paid according to the pay grade tables. We've added some temporary pandemic-related incentive pay categories also for guest instructors, and this is for instructional staff only. Guest instructional teachers and paraprofessionals will receive an additional $50 per day in addition to what's noted in the compensation plan. We also have an incentive rate for remote conference instructors and teachers. That'll be $200 a day. We're also recommending an additional rate for all tutors that are providing House Bill 4545 tutoring services. The rate for those qualified services will be $30 an hour. Typically, tutoring rate is $25 an hour, so there's an extra $5 incentive per hour. Other big ticket expenditures in our budget. Salaries total $262.2 million, benefits at $56 million, utilities are a little over $10 million, property and liability insurance a little over $2 million, and then Fort Bend Central Appraisal District and tax collection fees are also a little over $2 million. I would like to cover some supplemental funding sources that the district will utilize in the next 1 to 3 years. You've probably heard the term ESSER before, and that stands for a group of federal funds under the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds. We have ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funds, and they're non-competitive funding that's made available through the federal government, but it's passed through the state, and it assists districts with responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and also significant learning losses experienced by students. Our ESSER 1 money was utilized in the 2019-20 fiscal year because it supplanted our regular state aid. ESSER 2 the ESSER two entitlement for Lamar is $14.542 million. That the potential uses that we're looking at for those funds are the virtual instructional program and also to remediate learning loss. ESSER three money is a little over $32.6 million. We have filed an application for the first part of that money. The TEA released 2/3 of it, which is 21.8 million roughly. And then once those funds are approved and the additional 1/3 is released by the state, we will amend the current application for the additional $10.9 million that we'll get under Part 2 of ESSER 3. ESSER 3 funds have certain requirements. We have to set aside 20% to address learning loss, and of the $21.773 million, we've also recommended or looked at addressing the potential shortfalls of the 2021 budget, 23% of that money, which is $5 million. And then other response to the pandemic, 20.5% of the funds at $4.463 million. And then we propose to address other needs that have been identified through surveys of the community and various other means. 36.5% of the 2/3 would be $7.955 million. And I'll cover the 20% set aside for learning loss, the $4.3 million and the $7.9 million in the following slides. So the activities that we propose to engage in to address learning loss are shown on the right side of this slide. Behavioral supports for students with disabilities, several categories of tutoring, summer school programming, social emotional support programming, and also counselor support. And you'll see we'll be using those funds over a 3-year period, and they total $4,354,534. And then you'll see on the left-hand side, that same slide again, showing you the $7.955 million and how we're proposing to break that down. We're looking at purchasing technology tools like a universal screener for assessments, some additional Canvas testing modules, differentiated reading books, other technology supplies and materials, additional staff for 1621 Place, some additional curriculum software, and then some counselor and support staffs, virtual support, library supplies, and then reading and math coaches at the secondary level. That concludes our general fund discussion and also the ESSER discussion, and I'll move forward with debt service and INS fund information. We are also proposing a balanced budget for the debt service fund of $82.2 million roughly. On the revenue side, property taxes will make up the bulk of those funds at $76.4 million. And then we'll add penalty interest and delinquent taxes of about $550,000. And then investment earnings, whether they be on the debt service funds or capital projects funds, and also capitalized interest, we're looking at $3.4 million. And then state hold harmless funding for debt service and facilities of about $1.8 million. Those funds will go toward bond principal, interest, and fees of that $82.2 million. Next, I'll cover the Child Nutrition Fund. It's also a balanced budget. Uh-oh. My screen's not advancing, but that one is. Okay. The funds for the Child Nutrition Fund are supported by breakfast, lunch, and a la carte sales, as well as federal reimbursements. Total revenues are estimated at $17.54 million. Of course, that might be impacted by economic conditions. But the greatest categories of the expenditure side are also payroll and benefit costs of $7.7 million and supplies and materials of about $9.5 million. As I mentioned before, the budget, the three budgets required for adoption by the Board of Trustees are the general fund budget, the child nutrition budget, and the debt service budget. They're adopted by functional code or functional category, and that shows you who benefits by the expenditures. So if you look at the second column from the left, you'll see those function categories. And the thing I want to point out about this schedule is how the district is focused on student success. If you look at function codes beginning with 1s, 2s, and 3s, those are all student-focused, with the 1s being focused on direct classroom instruction. We've got roughly 64.5% of our general fund budget focused on direct classroom instruction. The first three categories total $248.5 million roughly. And then if you look at all of the 1s, 2s, and 3s, that's about 83.5% of our budget. And if you add facilities maintenance, security, and then data processing and technology services, that's another 13.5%. So about 97% of our budget is focused on student instruction and also critical services to maintain facilities and safety. So you'll see the totals for each of the budgets: $375.276 million for the general fund, $17.5 million for child nutrition, and $82.2 million for debt service. Continuing on with our proposed 2021 tax rate, it must be adopted by ordinance, and it contains two components: the M&O rate, which funds the general and or M&O fund, and that's 87.2 cents, and then the INS rate, which funds the debt service or the interest and sinking fund, which is 37 cents. So the combined total rate for 2021 is 1.242, about right at $1.24. As you can see from this chart, we are at the lowest tax rate we've been at since the 2012-13 year, or the 2012 tax year. We've gone from $1.39 to $1.24. With that, I will entertain any questions anyone has.
I've heard it a couple times now, so I got it down pretty good. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Lovell.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate all your work. And your team.
Yes, I have a fabulous
I can't see if
team.
everybody's back there, but yes, thank y'all very much. Ms. Vosick, do we have any comments from the audience?
There were none that signed up for the public hearing.
Okay. We'll be closing the public hearing. It is now 6:51 p.m.